listening to the Lesson Plan Podcast, where we unpack the stories, news, and sparks shaping education in Malaysia and beyond. I'm Samuel Isaiah.
And I'm Ken Singh.
So, Tenzing, we've been away for quite a bit. Dah lama kita tak sembang-sembang macam ni. Boleh ceritakan sikit, awak pergi mana sebenarnya?
I kat tempat sama je. I masih dengan pemimpin, and then I think I masih berkecimpung dalam dunia pendidikan. Masih giat dengan Malaysia Teacher Prize. Baru je lancarkan for this year, for 2025. Looking for the next 10 top best teachers in Malaysia. So it's always an exciting time lah. But Sam, I think people are more interested to know where you have.
I've been around. Tapi saya rasa apabila kita melancarkan the Lesson Plan Podcast ni up to a year ago.
2 years
ago. Wow. And we were doing it at that point, it was more of a pilot. Kita nak tengok adakah individu-individu di luar sana, guru, bukan guru ataupun pemegang taruh dalam ekosistem pendidikan kita are interested in conversations like this to talk about educational policies in Malaysia and all of that. So it's safe to say that the pilot worked. But then we thought that kita kena serious sikit lah.
Yeah.
Tak boleh lah letak kamera dalam kereta bersembang-sembang, audio pun tak apa-apa. Jadi saya rasa this is our chance or our take at being serious with this podcast.
2.0.
Lesson Plan Podcast 2.0. You've seen some changes in the logo and all of that, and that's intentional. And we are committed to bringing it more frequently to everyone. As long as schools exist, as long as there's education, I think the topic of education on its own is something that is interesting for everyone. So what's new about the podcast though, Tenzing?
So I think besides the fact that we're now in a room instead of in our space, I think masa kami berbincang, apabila kami nak aktifkan balik podcast ni, kami pun nak membuat sedikit diversify the kind of content that we do. Of course, it's always refreshing to hear your opinions, and I love to hear what you say, but I think sometimes we need to also have other people to come into the conversation, mendengar pandangan selain daripada kami berdua sahaja. So untuk season ini, if I were to call it that way, kami akan secara aktif mencari individu-individu yang tersohor ataupun yang berpengalaman dalam dunia pendidikan ni dan mendengar pandangan mereka and then have that greater discussion. And I think selaras dengan why we started this podcast is to get more and more people interested in the conversation.
Ya, setuju. Saya rasa kalau kita dapat memberi representasi pada ekosistem pendidikan kita dan kita dapat invite guest-guest yang I think it's not so much from individuals on the ground alone. I think if we have educators or individuals working with non-profit organizations on the ground, I think that is a very important perspective for us to highlight. Tapi saya rasa kita punya podcast ni juga mahu highlight ataupun bawa perspektif yang di atas sana. Pembuat-pembuat dasar, academicians dan sebagainya untuk melihat can we enrich the conversations with this education ecosystem. Speaking about enriching conversations, I think you spoke about having the opportunity of launching the Malaysia Teacher Prize, and the Malaysia Teacher Prize is in its 4th year. Maybe later you can add on more to that. But I think this week, in Singapore, and I had the opportunity to attend the global forum by the Global Institute, which is coming from Teach for All, right? It's based in Singapore. And the forum is intended to launch the Global Institute and what it wants to do for the future of education. I think it was a great experience. Number one, ia membawa individu terkemuka seperti Andreas Schleicher daripada OECD dan sebagainya, top organizations, education organizations from different parts of the world. One that is quite related to us was this African Leadership Academy. And I met with the CEO, amazing conversation that I had with him. I also met with the CEO of Teach for Japan. Interestingly, I was telling you in the car early on, he used to be a former professional football player from Valencia, and how his journey to education, something just blew my mind. I was truly inspired by it. But if there is one point that I want to highlight that was a key takeaway for me from the forum was, I think the forum started with the idea of us wanting to discover the purpose of education. What does education mean now? What does it mean? What did it mean in the past? And what is it going to mean in the future? Because I think we've never really, what are we learning for? Fundamentally, why are actually kids going to school, right? Is it just for the basic needs untuk membaca, menulis, mengira, pandai tu, pandai ni dan sebagainya, lepas tu boleh dapat UPSR, PT3, SPM dan sebagainya, pergi universiti? But what is the purpose of education? We didn't get an answer, obviously, but I think that was a very good starting point, that everyone across the education ecosystem, everybody that was present, really deep dive into that idea, and it started becoming a very reflective journey. For me, it was also one of the points that I brought up was about how the purpose of education is something that has got to relate to the idea of doing it as a collective.
Yes.
It's something that I learned when I was teaching in an indigenous orang asli school, di mana it was not about what I did for them, it's what I got to do with them. Hence, defining the idea and the purpose of education itself has got to be done together. Then we'll find the purpose. The purpose will change and all that, as long as we're doing it together. That's important. A few other people had very different narrations and reasons to what their purpose was education for. But I think I really needed this forum, and the people that I met was just a great experience.
Kalau dah silap saya, cikgu saya pergi dengan cikgu-cikgu lain dari Malaysia juga, kan?
Ya, betul. Kami juga dipemimpin, I think, sebagai sebuah organisasi bukan kerajaan, bukan berdasarkan keruntukan, yang the way we operate is based on a mission. Kita ada misi. Dan misi kita, antara banyak misi kita, but one of the main reasons is to make sure that we are platforming Malaysian teachers. Melalui Malaysia Teacher Prize ataupun melalui fellowship leadership kita dapat mengenal pasti individu-individu di Malaysia that are innovative, that are outstanding. We need to platform them in a position where they not just become local champions, tapi global champions juga. Jadi kami bawa bersama Cikgu Anutra, pemenang Malaysia Teacher Prize yang pertama, Cikgu Nazmi, fellow program lead middle leaders kita, dan juga pemegang Malaysia Teacher Prize, pemenang Malaysia Teacher Prize yang kedua, and they had a platform to share to global audience. And if there's anything as for us to be proud of, is to be able to give these individuals this well-deserved opportunity to share what they do.
And for world leaders in education to learn from their experiences as well. And I think saya nampak Cikgu Anutra pun post lepas pulang daripada Global Forum tentang betapa bermaknanya pengalaman ini ada untuk beliau, dan bagaimananya how it gives her that time and space, like you mentioned just now, to just stop and then think about what's the purpose and how will that guide her into growing in this field or in this space.
Because ultimately, saya rasa kita we need to act on what we believe in. Kalau secara prinsipnya kita percaya bahawa guru perlu diberikan peluang dan peluang untuk menunjukkan apa yang mereka lakukan dan apa yang murid-murid mereka lakukan, we need to translate that, right? We need to make sure that it is in these kind of spaces, not like, I will take part in the top conversations, the global ones. You just do the ones on the side. No. We really need to make sure that we are committed to this mission and to this idea. And pemimpin, like other organizations as well that we know of as well, including Teach for All, is committed to this idea that teachers should be driving change and they should be put in these positions to voice out and lead these changes.
And fundamentally, their voices matter.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, lovely way.
Yep. Shall we go to something a bit more topical?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So kalau saya search balik, saya Google search sikit apa berita-berita yang terkini dalam dunia pendidikan. Banyak. But I think yang paling sensational lah, kalau saya boleh gunakan perkataan tersebut, adalah berita di mana kebelakangan ini pihak kerajaan telah mengumumkan bahawa sebagai satu dasar baru bermula daripada 21 hari bulan 4, so in 1 or 2 weeks time, setiap murid di sekolah di bawah naungan Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia perlu memakai Lencana Jalur Gemilang di atas sebagai satu komponen atau sebagai satu elemen dalam uniform mereka. So this is going to be rolled out in 2 weeks time. I rasa the moment disebarluaskan, it create a lot of traction on social media, on the news channel. A lot of people starting to ask how and why. And then selepas tu terdapat sedikit pencerahan. I think we got more information that that pihak kerajaan dalam rollout ini juga akan memberikan 2 lencana bagi setiap murid secara percuma, so that murid akan terima daripada pihak sekolah dan just wear it and then it becomes a permanent part of the uniform. So that was the news, and I think there's the camp of it we understand very clearly is that ini merupakan satu inisiatif untuk menerapkan nilai patriotisme dalam kalangan murid, right? This sense of cinta akan negara, this sense of understanding what is your identity as a Malaysian, and to use this method in which there's going to be you physically see the tag, and then the act of wearing it, and not just wearing it on your uniform, but also treating it with respect, wearing it with pride, and I think that is character building in terms of who you are as a Malaysian. But of course, with every policy like this, terdapat juga suara yang dissenting voice, suara yang membantah.
Banyak suara.
Yes, I think tentang cara pelaksanaan. Kalau I think susulannya KPM juga keluarkan satu garis panduan or posisi di mana lencana ini perlu diletakkan. Then of course kalau murid ke students kan, kalau you lose the thing you have to buy your own, ini menjadikan beban and all of that. So I think there's all of this in the mix lah. For me personally, I think dia punya the significance of this matter macam tak proportional dengan what social media is making it out to be.
Macam digembar-gemburkan,
dia macam
unnecessarily highlighted.
Yeah, so when I started, as I say, sensational news lah kan. But I also understand that kalau nak add on perkara macam ni, then dia macam a bit of a surprise, because I think when it first got announced, everyone was wondering, where am I going to buy one? Because dia punya announcement kan, dia bukan sekaligus bagi semua maklumat tau. I think there was a bit of a time delay. So dia macam dari top down umumkan the headline, kena pakai. Then I think only 1 or 2 days later we found out, kerajaan akan bagi percuma. And then all and then recently
it's your point that it seemed like that it was an afterthought, and then
so masa diorang umumkan, dia macam tak bagi you the full picture. And then without the full picture, we will comment and we will criticize or we'll give our opinion. Then only the full picture kan macam kenapa tak one shot bagi je all the information, then we understand, then maybe the acceptance rate will be much better than it currently is. Then now we hear that dia akan dijalankan secara berperingkat, kalau murid tak pakai tak akan dikenakan hukuman. So to me dia punya comms macam agak sikit lemah lah in this case. So when it comes to this kind of rollout, and then becomes too sensational for its own good lah. But how did you feel when you heard it?
I when I first saw it, I thought that this was not newsworthy lah. In the sense of not sensation worthy. When I first saw it was being announced by the Prime Minister at the time, saying that episode, I was like, okay, that's it. I didn't put so much thought into it. I didn't kind of. But then after that, like I saw a lot of comments on social media. Di kalangan guru juga banyak. Saya nampak di kalangan bukan guru, of course lah kan, yang that questions it. I am of the opinion, I think fundamentally it is a cheap, easy way to say that, okay, we're doing something for Merdeka. Very straightforward. And after that, when the news came out that the mini bendera tu akan diberikan secara percuma kepada setiap murid dan sebagainya, dan ada garis panduan pemakaian, I thought that it was it. But it's quite similar to when the previous ministers would kasut hitam. It really feels like ada je benda tak kena. Like you can't do anything right in that sense. If I'm being very objective about this, saya rasa ini easy win. Letak tu, like dulu kita ada letak bendera dekat kereta kan, sekarang pun jarang ada. Letak, it's a sense that everybody is coming together. The value of that unity that it represents. Although yes, on the outside, I understand maybe nanti orang akan dengar cakap, kalau kita nak membela negara bangsa dan sebagainya bukan atas lencana di dada dan sebagainya bla bla bla, kita perlu terapkan nilai-nilai dalam kelas. I understand perkara tu memang penting, tapi as a show of solidarity or a show of respect to Pulang Kemerdekaan, and why not, man? I've also like had the opportunity of representing the country, and sometimes just having that badge, or on your shirt and all that, it means a lot, right? So if that could be an easy, quick way, with proportionally a high return of investment, they say like everybody's wearing the flag, and creates that rasa cinta kepada, contributes to it. I'm like, why not, man? I mean, that's my opinion. I don't see, even if it's from the commerce perspective, I think that what more can be communicated? Put the flag, okay lah. Then later the guideline come about, blah, blah, blah. But I just really feel that there's something that Kementerian Pendidikan memang akan jadi bangsa. Benda-benda macam ni, tak kira bila, apa inisiatif akan di-scrutinize, akan dikatakan macam-macam pendapat, macam like it's the worst thing that has happened in our education ecosystem. Talk about things that really matters lah. Please, I think the media also has got a role to play in this, right? To talk about things that really matters. Not this lah. I think this is just.
I mean, this won't affect much pengalaman murid dalam Bilik Darjah ke.
It doesn't.
So how it doesn't. Learning.
It doesn't. In fact, I was also quite disappointed lah, Mak Tekilan, melihat kalau ada rakan-rakan guru yang over cakap pasal benda ni, kan, like, come on, let it go. I mean, it's a non-issue. It's literally a non-issue. Initially, I think when we were looking at kita nak cakap pada topik ni pun, I'm like, do we need to give more prominence to it? But we should talk about it. And I think that the space that we have here to this podcast to talk about it celebrates the different opinions. But I think both of us are in agreement to say that tak ada apa-apa sebenarnya. Maybe there are things that can be improved with communicating it, but
I've seen it work. When I was in the UK, especially when it's nearing Remembrance Month.
Yep.
Everyone wears a poppy.
Yes, right? Exactly.
Parliamentarians wear a poppy. Yep. Normal civilians wear a poppy.
Yep.
Untuk tunjukkan rasa solidarity.
Absolutely.
Untuk mengenang jasa-jasa wira-wira yang berkorban dalam perjuangan.
Yep.
And there is that unity element.
Right.
And if this can be done at a low cost way,
and it's a national flag, if it's, I think what would have been a bit more worthy of our time in that sense to comment about it would be like if they came up with a specific logo for this lah. You know the logo that I'm talking about, right? The one with the head, then maybe, right?
Kalau dia
propaganda or there's a particular agenda to it to say and all that. But this is a national flag. Be proud of it. Put it on your, a lapel or your shirt and all that. Put it on. I don't see an issue here.
I think that's good enough.
Too much time talking about that one.
Yes.
Next, I think this is the thing that we wanted to talk about is this is something that is close to my heart when it comes to the safety of children. Maybe you can let us know about the details, but bila saya nampak video tu mengenai bully yang berlaku, it's like what? I started going down the rabbit hole thinking about, is this an enforcement issue? Is this a policy issue? Is it a value issue? Why? Just let us know, what is it about actually?
Yeah, so I think Sam bercakap tentang atau berkongsi tentang berita di mana kami menerima makluman terdapat kes bully yang agak serius dalam kalangan murid NRSM yang melibatkan 7 orang murid yang membuli classmate ataupun rakan mereka. Well, I guess rakan would be not the best phrase here. Di mana terdapat bully tersebut dijalankan secara physical. I don't want to go into the details of it in that sense, but safe to say that the student that was involved was quite particularly hurt. And then it was raised, and then police investigations are currently have been undergone. Kalau tak silap saya, it even got to the point where dia macam permulaan tau, because dia start dengan kes 7 orang murid yang terlibat ni. Kemudian semalam baru kami tahu bahawa ada berita di mana ada 2-3 lagi kes bully yang timbul lagi dalam kalangan murid MRSM ni. But tindakan yang tegas telah pun diambil, di mana seperti mana yang saya cakap tadi, siasatan polis sedang dijalankan dan juga Presiden daripada pihak MARA have recommended them for expulsion dan telah menegaskan bahawa murid-murid tersebut tidak akan diberi peluang kedua. Maksudnya dia tak akan terima apa-apa appeal lah untuk masuk kembali balik kepada MRSM. So definitely cerita buli ni bukan perkara pertama kami dengar. I think every year you get a few. Doesn't make it any better, I would say, because I think tak kira bilangan, tak kira bila, we're talking about students that fundamentally feel unsafe in school, right? They are being...
And we unfortunately have a track record of people even losing their lives.
Yes.
So, yeah.
In the past, pernah ada tragedy lah yang berlaku, when it has gone too far. So, but if I had to say something, the silver lining was that I was actually happy in the sense that apabila saya terima berita ada 2-3 kes buli yang telah dikesan selepas kes original ni lah yang pencetus, because I think if anything good were to come of this is that murid-murid yang memang mengalami situasi sebegini tidak sepatutnya be afraid. They shouldn't be afraid to voice out what they're experiencing and seek help. And feel like they are powerless or they have to go through this for whatever remains of their time in school. And that memang I think as a country, we've always had very zero tolerance towards these kinds of things. And if anything, the fact that the media covers this and that strict actions are being taken shows to people that, if you are in this kind of situation, ask for help and your situation will improve tremendously after that. That's what I hope for.
I was thinking about this in a few perspectives. Saya baca online dan ada beberapa orang guru yang mengaitkan insiden ini dengan satu faktor. Dan faktornya adalah kurang warden atau tiada warden sepenuh masa. Untuk pendengar yang tak familiar dengan warden education ecosystem kita dan sekolah-sekolah kita dan sebagainya, ramai warden kita adalah cikgu.
Yes.
So they are not full-time wardens. So with already, kalau kita nak kita punya hypothesis atau kita punya premis penyertaan masalah ini adalah cikgu kurang masa, cikgu banyak beban, cikgu ada stretch, and then adding warden is another big deal actually. I'm not really sure the ratio of warden to students berapa banyak dan sebagainya, but the idea that you need someone full-time to take care of the well-being of the students in boarding schools, I think this needs some serious thoughts need to go in. Tapi sebelum point mengenai warden ini, I also started thinking about kalau kita nak cari evidence mengenai bilangan kes buli di negara kita dan sebagainya, where are the resources, where is it being reported, how many and all of that, it's either hard to find, it is hard for us to classify where we are at. And even if that evidence is found, I've had the opportunity of discussing it at a certain round tables and all of that. And ada pihak-pihak tertentu yang mengatakan, contohlah, it's quite appalling for me. Kita ada satu sistem, I tak ingat nama sistem tu, tapi satu sistem di mana kita melaporkan buli dan kes-kes sebegini. And melalui sistem itu, dalam satu perbincangan ini, dikatakan bahawa at that time it was sejenis sekolah, dikatakan bahawa dalam sekolah-sekolah macam ni, tak ada kes buli langsung. Number one, okay, I may doubt the data and evidence. And to say that there is no bullying in our schools, it's a stretch.
Very strong statement.
Very strong statement. Tak ada bully di sekolah-sekolah macam ni. Regardless whether the evidence is right or wrong or numbers betul ke tidak, saya rasa pada asasnya kita kena tahu, kita kena ada satu sikap di mana kita reflektif. Dan kita tahu bahawa kalau kita ada masalah, kita punya first reaction adalah bukan untuk ignore ataupun untuk tutup isu. The first thing that we need to do is talk about it. Admit that we've got an issue. Right? I think this is something that we in Malaysia struggle with in our education system, if I can say it. Not about the government, but our system. Kalau ada masalah literasi, kita akan cuba tapis nombor tu to make sure it looks nicer. So I think we need to be very open with this, because at the end of the day, perkara-perkara macam ni mungkin kita nak katalah kalau akademik kita ada waktu, kita boleh melakukan intervensi, kita boleh bagi mereka sokongan tambahan dan sebagainya, boleh baca in the next few years also. Perkara macam ni kalau silap hari bulan meninggal budak tu, then siapa nak jawab? So saya rasa kita kena approach benda ni, kalau kita nak kata betul-betul serius nak approach perkara ini, is to first admit that we have a problem, we have an issue. Proper issue. Like I was talking to you about that Teach for Japan CEO, and he was very open to admit that number one, Japan is an aging society, and number two, there's a lot of kids in Japan who commit suicide. Although it's something that he's not proud of, but being proud of it or not is secondary compared to this is the reality, this is the situation, and we need to come up with solutions for the. So I think that approach, that mindset has always got to be there. The mindset that we are open to admitting that things are working, and when things are not working, even more be open about it, and that open doors for people to contribute, come up with solutions for it, because it can't go on.
Yeah.
Can't.
I mean, we can feel sad about it, that it has happened, but you shouldn't be like, oh, okay, it's isolated, we don't want to talk about this, and then there's nothing wrong here, let's just move on. And then the next case happens, and then, and then you go through the same cycle again without much action. But what do you actually hope then that people take away from this? Because I think for now it's being framed as a very MRSM specific kind of issue, perhaps with boarding schools in general. Is there some kind of like correlation between having students living in that kind of situation where then they're more prone to being bullied as opposed to being, for example, kalau sekolah harian ke tak akan develop sampai macam ni ke? I think that's something that we definitely need to look in, because the environment lah yang akan mendorong, mungkin environment memainkan peranan yang penting dalam mendorong sikap-sikap sebegini atau insiden-insiden sebegini. It reminds me of, I think last time was bukan sekolah tapi it was the army camps, was it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
PDRM, right, and all that kind of stuff. Right. So different targets, but similar kind of context.
But if I can add on, I think compared to previous years, that again, when I'm saying compared to previous years itself, it's like kadang-kadang bila kita tengok video macam ni, another one.
Yeah.
like it's just, this was last year, this year, like every year there's something that's making its way out to social media and all of that. Well, besides that point, I think apa yang Kementerian Pendidikan lakukan, the investigation they went to it, apa yang Mara lakukan, and all of that, I think shows they are firm, how firm they are with this, whether the students are now recommended for expulsion atau untuk dibuang ataupun dibuang sekolah atau silap saya, dan saya rasa ini menunjukkan mereka serius lah. I think this is serious. It's a crime in some sense, so it's just a step before it's a crime. So I think this has to continue. I think they are already there at the first step of admitting it, that is something serious. We will make sure that every parent who is sending their child to a public school, or not, can be rest assured that their child is safe. I think that's a good thing that has happened. But we need to be a bit more proactive and not reactive in this. I think the reaction was quick, precise. But if you want things like this not to happen, pencegahan lah. Yeah. Yes. Okay, welcome back to our podcast. We took a short break. Last we spoke earlier was a lot about the student safety in schools, and rasa asas kepada perbincangan tadi adalah bully yang berbentuk physical, ataupun a threat to the students that is more physical. But now with social media and things being online, it's a bit more than that. So there are two new things that's happened recently. There's a debate over teachers and parents, mainly about featuring students on social media, and the communications minister also came out with a statement recently saying that educators not to use children, especially primary pupils, as content and all of that. I think recently you were also on a media platform to talk about this idea, about this issue as well. The second one, which relates to this also, is the misuse of technology by students, whereby a student at a private secondary school in Johor was accused of using AI to create explicit deepfake images of his classmates, and I was like, whoa, this guy is another level. I'm assuming he's a guy. I haven't read it.
Yes.
But explicit deepfake images of his classmates and all of that doing
So maksudnya dia macam ambil gambar kawan dia bagi kat AI dan minta AI tu untuk
buat macam-macam lah.
buat gambar versi lain lah.
Yes, versi lain.
Tak,
Yes.
Not as palatable.
Betul.
Ah.
So saya rasa point here, I think the first point is the safety of children on social media. The second one is related to freedom, agency or autonomy when it comes to students with the ability to do things beyond our imagination.
Yeah.
And how is school then either providing the right environment to guide them to use it well, or how are we approaching this? What's your take on the first one?
For the first one, I think this has been a long-standing issue for a few years now, especially since TikTok blew up kan. Apabila TikTok banyak digunakan bukan saja oleh guru tetapi juga dalam kalangan murid, penglibatan murid dalam konten lah yang diviralkan atau yang dikongsikan memang bertambah. And I think fundamentally, if we talk about whether or not I've seen many videos. In fact, some of the teachers that we know it very well. For example, Sir Asai involves his students in a lot of his videos where it's fun to see murid-murid dia macam try to pronounce a word that is difficult and then come up with various funny kind of ways, and through that menarik minat murid dalam mempelajari bahasa Inggeris, right? And I think if in that kind of context, kalau konten tersebut adalah digunakan untuk mengukuhkan pembelajaran ataupun menarik minat murid dalam their studies and all of that, I think that is a great way because social media becomes a platform, menjadi satu wadah yang cikgu-cikgu rasa kalau kena dengan target murid mereka boleh gunakan sebagai satu cara untuk an alternative strategy to complement how they are already teaching within the classrooms, right? But fundamentally, if students are going to be involved, similar to macam kita cakap tentang pelibatan murid dalam co-curriculum or whatever, this is the same thing because at the core principle is that apa yang melibatkan murid must put their safety first, right? Safety, and in this case dalam konteks social media, privacy as well. Dan memang ada tata cara ataupun garis panduan yang perlu diikuti in order to make sure that students understand what they're experiencing, that the parents are well informed, dan guru-guru yang melibatkan murid tersebut mempunyai persetujuan daripada pihak sekolah, pihak ibu bapa dan anak murid mereka sendiri tu. So I think that's everything that has to be the pretext to whatever conversation we are having about involving students. And without that, then nothing else can really be done. It's not really a matter of, is the content going to be good enough to menarik minat? No, all of that is inconsequential compared to the first point, the premise that we must have this conversation in.
Bagi saya, you cannot brisk the child no matter what your argument is. And especially when there is no consent. That is a no. That is an immediate no. We should not even be considering or providing any sort of, there shouldn't be a guideline. There should be an instruction. A guideline says that you can do it, but this way. Why not that way? It's like, it should be clear instruction to say no students on TikTok platforms or whatever social media platforms without consent. The risk is just too much. We don't know. For all we know, because of the content that you are creating, not you lah, the content that you are creating, somebody is following you. And is following the child, and that leads to something else that you do never know. But why are you encouraging this? I think that is number one. That should not be a debate whatsoever. The second part of this is, I think it's a bit different, not just for the students, but for me, it's whether bila penggunaan TikTok ataupun rekod diri sendiri sewaktu dalam, that is my biggest pet peeve. Saya sebenarnya tak boleh tahan sebenarnya bila saya tengok konten-konten macam ni. Tak tahulah diorang nak kecap ke tak, tapi bila saya tengok konten di mana cikgu pacak kamera dan rekod waktu dia mengajar. Saya rasa that is beyond it being unprofessional dan sebagainya. You're not focused. You're not focused on the job that is on hand, which is to educate the child. You don't need to display yourself doing your work. It'll be very odd if I know we are all into this experience, day the life of this, day the life of that, day the life of whatever it is, but if it takes away from takes your attention away from high quality instruction, and that leads to everything else. Why? What is the point? If you could use that 20 minutes to record, edit, do your CapCut, upload it on your TikTok, what? I mean, it shouldn't be it. I've not seen. I think the guidelines in MOE. Please correct me if I'm wrong. MOE guidelines don't address this. They only address it when it involves the students. But it doesn't really talk about whether teachers can record themselves. Should they or should they not record themselves when they bring activities in the classroom? Teaching in the classroom. I think they should be stopped immediately. There must be a very firm decision by the Ministry of Education to say that kita tak nak benda-benda ni berlaku. Tujuan dia guna macam mana? You tak boleh nak ukur niat tau. Niat saya hanyalah untuk melihat cara saya mengajar untuk saya improve diri saya sendiri. Itu niat yang you cakap. Semua everybody can just say saya ada niat. Macam mana nak ukur niat? Ataupun kemenjadian niat itu, macam mana nak ukur? Tak boleh. Sangat susah. So saya rasa I'm flexible about a lot of things that happen within the classrooms when it comes to the using of technology. Or you can record, don't publish, whatever it is, right? But when it comes to it building personal fame, or bringing personal brand, even if individuals say that's not the reason why they're doing it and all of that, especially in public schools, it shouldn't be. In private schools, there's your own institution. You can record for all you want, for marketing and branding and all of that. That's the entire thing. But in public schools, I think there must be a clear stance by the Ministry of Education to say that, no, they shouldn't be doing this. I had a conversation with a friend in Singapore the other day about this. I'm like, they are even appalled. Singapore is a good comparison. It's our neighbor and they are best in the world, right? So if there's anybody that you need to follow when it comes to academic stuff,
Pak ni orang kecam kau nanti.
Tapi dia orang tak boleh brain kenapa kita kena cakap pasal benda ni. Kenapa perkara ini masih nak consider boleh ke tak boleh ke, boleh ke tak boleh ke, boleh tak. It's very clear.
Now, kalau saya nak jadi devil's advocate,
silakan.
Which I'm always at. Do you think that it's better to remove it completely or to have it integrated in schools in one way or another? I'm not saying that teachers should film themselves or be focused about content creation as they're teaching. I think that's a different thing. That's a different thing. Ada cikgu ada tukar hakiki mereka sendiri, that goes without saying, right? But to remove it from schools when we have to face the fact that the world that we invariably live in is tied with social media. And students, whether or not by our protection or by their parents' choice or whatever, have thrown themselves in, regardless of whether nanti MC cakap, kena ada 16 tahun baru boleh ada account lah. There's going to be
everybody just accept.
Yes. Suddenly you see everybody is born in 1980 for all I care, you know. So social media is invariably going to be in their lives, and could there be an opportunity that sekolah menjadi satu tempat di mana cara menggunakan social media secara berhemah dan sebagainya?
I mean, by teachers having record themselves while they teach is not a good example at that point lah.
Correct.
It's not menggunakan secara berhemah already lah.
Yes.
It's basically sending a very different message altogether. It's literally sending a different message altogether. If I can be distracted by a camera that is recording me while I'm doing my work, I'm inadvertently saying that you are not as important. It'd be weird, right? If you're having a team meeting that I put a camera, just like, I mean, like, come on. It was even revoked in Parliament initially. Remember, some MPs were just putting their phones to record themselves.
Yes, and then the speaker had to say, stop. Kalau orang ramai nak tengok, boleh tengok live stream, tak payah buat this kind of show.
But for them, it's their brand. It's their point that they trying to. But within the classroom, right? I honestly don't get it.
But there are teachers who, for example, set videos as assignments, as their homework.
And that's a different thing. But that's involved the students, right?
Correct.
And of course, if it's recording the students, and the students are putting it online and with consent, that's a different matter altogether. So
English speaking assignment, that kind of thing.
There's two parts of what we're talking about right now, right? So I don't know. I think the first part is very clear. If it involves students, you need consent. For me, the second part is also very clear. If you're teaching in a classroom and you're serious about teaching in a classroom, don't record yourself for social media content and put it on lah.
And I think the examples, the best examples or the best practices we look up to, for example, like what I said about outside, are all that is doesn't concern what is happening within the classroom life during the lesson. They are always going to be outside of the classroom. They are always going to be outside of core teaching hours. They are always going to be complementary elements. And that should be the way.
I think Asai's example is a great example. Done with respect, used for teaching and learning, got consent not just of the kid, the teachers, the parent, the community, whoever it is, he needs to get consent from, and he's got it.
Yes.
And he does it in a way. But he doesn't record himself teaching, if you notice that.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. He just because he does spraying people.
Exactly. And that's part of the whole design of the video.
Yes.
Yeah. The second point of this is the misuse of AI.
Yang the deepfake punya tu.
Deepfake. What are your thoughts about that?
I think this is something that we have to. This is like when social media first started, then everybody talked about child safety when it first started. Now AI is the next thing. Then I think semua orang guna AI untuk membuat Studio Ghibli versions of themselves and all that kind of thing. So it's bound to happen. Case ni akan berlaku dalam negara kita, malahan sudah berlaku di dalam negara-negara luar. And I think it's how do we as educators, how do we make sure that as times peredaran zaman, peredaran teknologi, how do we make sure that students who are exposed to all these things are given the right mindset to be able to use it well and to use it with the right kind of values. And teachers have to catch up with the kind of technology that is out there and how it can be used for pervasive ways like this. I read a report that there in another country where a student used this to bully other students by using ChatGPT untuk menjana image yang memang fake news lah. Dalam konteks mungkin budak ni buat merokok ke atau mengambil dadah ke dan sebarkan kepada murid-murid lain untuk membuli ataupun mewujudkan persepsi yang negatif terhadap murid tersebut. So I think everyone working in this space has to be a bit more alert and knowing how to detect these things, and also making sure that students, as trends come about, we cannot stop people from thinking how to use this in a evil way.
Honestly, right? How when I was reading this, like, how do I stop this?
You
I mean, you're not in control of their own personal time on their own personal phone using ChatGPT, OpenAI and whatnot to generate these pictures.
But we have to have the amount of AI literacy to be able to discern the things that we see, right? Because if they are going to use this to spread around news or to bully other people or to create false images of things, then everybody has to be up to date with what are the things to look out for. I think somebody showed me, kalau an easy way to start is you look at the picture, kena tengok tangan tu. Dia connected atau pun dia tercabut sikit. And we have to have that awareness first so that these things don't take over our lives and then suddenly becomes, too much for us for anyone to handle. I rasa dari pihak KPM memang I tahu, especially with the new curriculum revision that's happening, murid fasih digital is a thing.
This one terlebih fasih already.
Terlebih fasih. But when I say fasih digital, I think it also comes with the fact that how do you use AI ethically, right? What are the values, what are the responsibilities that you need to have? Even the Studio Ghibli trend, I think, made a lot of people realize about what does AI now mean to the concept of copyright, honoring artists' work and all of that. So I think besides the skills, which we all need to detect these things, then it comes with the responsibility of the values that we need to educate them.
I think it's a great point. I think reflecting on the work that we have been doing also, the essence of whatever that we do when we work with teachers and generally with human beings is always to anchor on the why. It's either why is this important or why is this an issue? Because it's a connection between what your mind thinks about it and what your heart believes in. To say that this is a principle, this is a line that I will not cross. But I'm also thinking about it from the other perspective where I don't know what was done to this particular student. Was he charged with anything?
I think they are still going through investigation. So tak ada apa-apa.
I honestly think because it's so like it's a kid, right?
Yes,
it's what kids would do.
Yes.
Maybe back in the day, people would just freehand and draw it somewhere, or in bathroom stalls all over, without leaving much evidence of anything. But this one, it's just being creative of it. So I think, as much as we are saying that this needs to be regulated, as much as we are saying that we need to have awareness creation, the mindset part of it, I think issues like this needs to be handled with a lot of empathy as well. Sebab it's a child, it's a kid. it's a kid in school. Kita tak boleh go on full on bash apalah ini ke kerosakan masyarakat lah. Alah dulu sebab tak ada TikTok, tak ada AI,
send everyone,
orang tak tahu.
Send everyone to Henry Gurney, you know.
You've done all this nonsense in the world as well. I'm very sure a lot of individuals have done it, but just don't put it in public.
Yes.
So I think the approach to this, I know it's an issue about the misuse of technology, but it's also about a child. And to address it with empathy is always important. And I don't want it to be framed like, this takes a huge psychological toll on him. This becomes like the biggest thing he's done in his life. Everybody is just hopping around about it. I didn't want to bring it up, but like that Sunway thing, right? Right about it. Like when they marched the kid throughout the campus. I'm like, what are you guys doing, right?
It was a full-on demonstration.
For what it's worth, it shouldn't be done that way. These are all human beings, and the social emotional part is becoming more and more prominent and important these days. So saya rasa pendekatan yang penuh dengan empati, pendekatan yang memahami humans make mistakes are important, especially when they still come under the covering of schools and institutions like this. So
that's a good segue for the next one, because I think bila saya cakap tentang empathy, I think this news really needs a more empathy, I think, di mana saya agak terkesan dengan headline apabila seorang guru didakwa telah menggunakan frasa ataupun this term go back to China, which I think I have heard many times in my life in many different ways, that terhadap seorang murid yang tidak fasih betul-betul dalam bahasa Melayu. Malahan kalau tak silap saya, mengikut reporting, ibu bapa murid tersebut juga tidak fasih bahasa Melayu. Dan oleh
ini di sekolah jenis kebangsaan ke?
I think this is in SK kot kalau tak silap saya. Tapi memang sekolah kerajaan lah. Tak tahu SK ke SGKC. But I think the common
is a public school.
It's a public school. So audio clip, ada satu rakaman audio yang diviralkan di mana cikgu ni agak marah lah terhadap murid ni kerana tidak dapat betul-betul dalam bahasa Melayu walaupun warga negara Malaysia dan sebagainya. Malahan tambahan cikgu ni juga menggunakan kata-kata yang quite strong dan juga mengarahkan murid ni kerana his inability to speak in Malay, duduk sebelah tong sampah, almost sort of equating that it's where he should be, right? And I think it was quite a sad news to see that this was still happening in certain classrooms. I think I don't want to go on a limb and say that ni memang banyak di sekolah sana, tak nak lah kerana nila setitik rosak susu sebelanga kan. But when it happens, I think like you said, empathy is that it's something.
Empathy for the teacher?
No, for the student. Like you.
Sorry, just speaking like.
I'll talk about that later. But what do you think when you heard this news?
Again, quite similar to the bullying thing and all of that. It's become you just don't bat an eye like it's another one. But I think it becomes a bit more personal because it's again a child, a student in the classroom, a child that is vulnerable. There's a clear power distance. That means you have seorang guru yang mempunyai kuasa yang mutlak terhadap murid di dalam kelasnya. Things like that, and this is a very traumatizing experience for the said child. I've never had that said to me in school, or nor have I said it to anybody in school. I think I have heard it.
Not to China, of course.
Not to China, but to India and all of that. But I've heard it in person. But I think the biggest part of it is that it's in school. I don't want to say that kita semua satu Malaysia, Melayu, generally happy. I think we have seen over the past few months or few weeks at least, there's a lot of issues that actually question our national identity and religious tensions in Malaysia. Fine. But fundamentally, if it happens in school, it's a problem. The school is a reflection of the teacher in the school. A civil servant is a reflection of the values of the government, of the country. You are a civil servant. You serve the country. And by all means, this is if for whatever that we've spoken about today, I think this is probably one of the biggest that has happened with regards to somebody at that position saw it fit to say that to the child. I don't know why drove him to. I started thinking like, what made him, right? Could it be justifiable? Sebab kadang-kadang orang kata macam mesti budak tu cakap satu dulu atau buat sesuatu dulu.
Okay, we're entering the empathy to the teacher.
I tak tahu.
No, I can see. I can try and see. Let me put it that way. Kalau mungkin...
Sebab for me, tak masuk akal lah kan. Tapi,
No, because kadang-kadang kalau saya bercakap dalam bahasa Melayu, ada rakan-rakan ataupun guru-guru Melayu yang agak quite happy with the fact that I can speak relatively well. And I think maybe then, to the flip it the other side, it's the frustration when you see like, why are you as a member of this country, as a national identity, unable to grasp the language? Right? But to roll back, apabila saya tengok berita ni, apa yang I paling terkesan ialah ruangan komen. Because dalam ruangan komen saya nampak melimpah komen yang rakan-rakan di dalam social media memberikan sokongan ataupun yang menggalakkan atau bersetuju dengan kelakuan cikgu tersebut. I read comments that said like, correct, betul. Kenapa tak boleh kenapa murid tu tak fasih bahasa Melayu? Tak payahlah jadi bangsa Malaysia. You know, things like that. That in some sense vindicated the teacher, you know.
Tapi ini sekolah kot.
Yeah.
Cikgu tu tak boleh cakap bahasa Melayu, betul kan lah.
Yeah.
Ajarlah kan.
Yeah, so I find it quite sad that because dia bahasa Melayu, so naturally benda 3R akan muncul. Walaupun I tak suka dikaitkan. To me, this is if I change the context. If a teacher scolded somebody because they couldn't add or they couldn't do subtraction, right? Your direct response should not be "you're stupid" or "why are you here? You should go back home" or whatever, right? It should come, okay, you don't understand. Okay, what can I do to make you understand? Your job is to teach. Tugas seorang guru adalah mendidik, memanusiakan manusia, as some people like to call it. And why must that action come with all these sort of powerful or negative words and these kinds of lontaran kata-kata yang kesal? It's just not constructive and it's not building to any teaching and learning that is supposed to happen.
But in essence, if that is the reflection of the national identity, why would I want to learn a language that reflects that kind of identity, that aggressive nature of it? I think I again don't want to pukul rata dan katakan semua cikgu. Saya tahu ramai cikgu di luar sana. Macam dulu saya ingat tahun lepas ada waktu hari sukan dan cikgu tu cikgu berbangsa Melayu dan murid dia Indian, so dia orang pergi sukan, tak ada sudu something like that, cikgu tu duduk suap sorang-sorang. So you see, I think it's this one particular individual.
Yes.
And my point is that besides the comments and all of that, I think ramai cikgu-cikgu di kita memang menjiwai, and not just menjiwai, they show what it means to be Malaysian, that they care for children. But to this one particular individual, that's obviously not the case. No matter what the reason, I think it's unacceptable to do this to a child, to make the child question his or her identity. And I think the Ministry of Education need to step up and figure this out together with the teacher, with the school.
Memang saya rasa dah dipanggil pun ke TV untuk
because
nilai dan sebagainya.
Tenceng, you buat macam mana Malaysia Teacher Prize pun. Jadi bagi cikgu tu 200,000 ke 300,000 untuk memartabatkan profesion perguruan, untuk mengatakan cikgu-cikgu kita adalah seorang yang berjiwa murni, that goes above and beyond to help students and
profession yang patut disanjungi.
Lepas tu ada makhluk macam ni, seorang tiba-tiba that
like sours the whole thing. Nilai tu lah.
And I really hope these things don't happen again. But kudos to the child, kudos to the parents for bringing this up and talking about it. We need to call a spade. We need to call things out as it is. And we need to together address issues. I think like what we said earlier on, the more we are open to the challenges and the more we are open to our issues,
the more we'll work towards solving it.
Yeah. Thank you everyone. Terima kasih kerana menonton episod baru kami, macam Tenceng kata, Lesson Plan Podcast,
the revival episode.
Dan kami berharap dapat terus mendapatkan sokongan daripada siapa-siapa mendengar yang menonton podcast kami. Tolong like, tolong share, subscribe dan sebagainya. And kalau ada apa-apa soalan, is there something that you want us to talk about, there's a issue or something you disagree with us, an opinion,
someone you like to see on this table with us,
let us know in the comments, and we'll be more than happy to address it. Thank you and see you again in the next podcast.
Bye-bye.